my honor and pleasure. Hi, everybody. It's so wonderful to be together and to see so many familiar faces, familiar names. I think especially at this time when the world is so profoundly cracked open, to just know that we are gathering in practice and we're about to all find our way to a similar frequency, a similar wavelength, regardless of the physical distance that's separating us. That's really just so powerful. So my name is Rabbi Sara, and I'm situated in the north of Israel. So what that means is I'm not so far north that what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm physically safe where I am, and yet we're gathering at a time when that's just so raw. It's so raw, and we're going to use that rawness to focus us in our practice today. So I'm gonna offer us a kavanah, an intention from this week's Torah portion as a way of launching us into the practice I'd like to play with together today. But before I do, so we're going to work today straight into the broken heart. Actually, I know that for me, as someone who lives in Israel and loves living in Israel so much, we are right now a country of the brokenhearted. And I think that if you are a Jewish person walking around the world right now, that on some level you might share that. And so we're going to do together what I think is a very beautiful practice and a powerful practice, but it's a practice that's going to lean into the rawness a little bit. And so by way of context for that, before I offer a kavanah from the Parsha, I want to remind us, if you are one of the people, I know so many of the people who are here now for this sit have been doing this for a few years now with IJS, which is so beautiful. And so if you are a person who's committed to contemplative practice, then I'm going to trust that you are aware of the ways that Eastern tradition also informs this mode of spiritual practice as much as does Jewish tradition. And so in that, we're going to lean into some of the rawness, even maybe the pain together today. I want to start by reminding us that there are some teachers in the East who work with pain straight out, who even go as far as situating practice conditions to create a context for pain, because pain in contemplative practice can be a profoundly focusing tool. As it turns out, it's actually quite easy to pay attention to something that hurts. We're sort of programmed to pay attention to something that hurts, to the point where in our broader practice, we really need to work those muscles of mind to practice noticing the good. And most of the time, if you work with me and sit with me, that's what we'll do. But today we're going to let ourselves work with and work through the power of a broken heart and a heart that's broken open. So the kavanah that I want to offer us from the Parsha has to do with life and the preciousness of life and the interaction between life and death, which really for me is, it's all I see. Every news headline I read, it's just all the same. So this week we're reading Parashat Sara, and there are two parshas in the Torah that have the word life in their title. This week is one of them. But the reason that they are named for life is that they're both actually parshiot about death. So this week's parsha opens with the death of my namesake, of Sara. And then the other parsha that has the word life in its title is Vayechi, which is all about the death of Jacob. And Joseph. So we have in the themes of these parshiot, but I'll focus on this week's parsha, this interaction between life and death. And I think that however we're feeling about the war in Israel and about the ripple effects of violence that are just rippling out all around us in our Jewish communities, however we feel about it, and these things arouse such strong reactivity in us, such strong feelings. But what I want to suggest is that if we scratch beneath the surface of those feelings, whoever we might name as the enemy, that when we scratch beneath the surface, what we find is that the real enemy is actually death. That we have in us, that part of being human is being stuck in this struggle, resistance, and then eventually maybe learning to embrace the fact that we are mortal. And so therefore that on some level, death is always the enemy. And yet what we know to be true is that it is the very fact of our mortality that gives the preciousness to life. It's only when we face our death, when we have it right up close next to us, that we realize, my God, every moment is a blessing. Every relationship is a blessing. And so I'll say that I'm joining you here from the north of Israel, really acutely feeling both of those pieces, feeling the broken heart and the struggle, cosmic battle of life and love of life over death. And equally feeling that because of that cosmic battle, just that preciousness of life is so much at my fingertips and in my mouth and in my heart. And so I'd like to invite us now into a practice to see if we can't lean into that some together. So I'm going to give us some practice instructions in a moment, but just before I do that, I want you to take a moment right now and just stop looking at the screen and just glance around your room, wherever it is you're joining us from today. Just long enough, glance around to let your eyes land on something that makes you smile. It can be a really little simple thing, maybe a little tchotchke in the corner, or a gift someone gave you on the desk, or if you have a view out the window, just something, let your eyes land on something that makes you smile. So I want this external positive anchor to be a resource for you for the duration of our practice together today. If at any point in our practice it feels too much, then you can open your eyes, let your gaze fall on this thing that is good and beautiful and makes you smile, and take a few breaths there, and then decide what's right for you in terms of coming back into the heart space or staying with the pleasant thing. And even that is just such an important skill for us to always know that regardless of the depth of the darkness, there's always sparks of light. So just bookmark for yourself where that joyful positive anchor is. And now I'd like you to join me. So we're going to transition now into a nice stretch of about 20 minutes of quiet practice. And so join me in taking a comfortable seated position. And I'll talk us into our posture in just a moment. But before we go there, just take a minute and let the hands rest on the heart, because we're going to be practicing with the heart. So having the hands there on the heart, and begin to just let the heart, give it space to be wherever it is right now, to feel whatever it's feeling right now. So the idea behind this sit that we're going to do is that the heart that is broken open, that we are all joined by our broken heart. And that when we have the courage to step into that crevice that breaks open, that what we find there is we find the pain of the world, but we also find ourselves joined with all those who are feeling into that. And so it becomes for us a portal to a beautiful sense of connectedness that's beyond time and space. So just allowing that felt sense of the heart. And let's now come into our comfortable seated position. You can wiggle around for a moment if you need. And let's gently close the eyes. And begin to lengthen the duration of the inhale and the exhale, letting the breath just stretch out. Inviting the breath to travel the full length of the torso. inviting your inhalation all the way down, 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 so that it tickles the base of the tail where the tailbone meets your seat. And allowing the inhalation to fill you up so much that the collarbone expands, feeling a sense of buoyancy in the body. Allowing the spine to feel like a ladder, joining heaven and earth. You floating in between. Breathing in and out through the nose if you can. And I'll invite you, if it's right for you, to join me in anchoring into the tender openness in the heart. And so with each inhalation, we're going to feel a sense of expansion around the heart. And then with each exhalation, we feel a sense of softening, feeling the buoyancy of the heart in the upper part of the torso. I inhale and I feel the heart open. And I exhale and I feel the heart held and cradled. And just let yourself be very curious. Perhaps noticing if there's a certain type of light that comes through the heart that's cracked open. There's a certain temperature, texture, color. Just being curious. And with each exhale, softening. Feeling the heart held. Feeling yourself held in your open-hearted vulnerability. And just being playful with this practice, remembering that if it's ever too much, you can open your eyes, let the gaze come to rest on that anchor that makes you smile. Take a few breaths there, and then drop back in. Sometimes when we come face to face with the strong feelings that we're holding in our heart, sometimes we can meet those things with judgment. And yet now, with the world so broken open, we can just be in total loving acceptance. And for all of the various nooks and crannies, cracks in the heart, just letting yourself be with them. Feeling how they join you with the open hearts of every person practicing together now. And every person doing their best to find a way to love the other. I'd like to invite you now to add a visual image. I'd like you to imagine the heart cradled in two loving palms, held from behind. You can feel inside that sense of the heart being held. These can be your hands taking care of your heart, or they could be the hands of someone who holds your heart for you out in the world. Just feeling how that shifts. Does that help the heart to soften, to open? Do the colors or the textures change at all? We have the expression in English, you're pulling at my heartstrings. In my work at Awakened Body, I actually do quite a bit of work with heartstrings. So as we begin to wrap up our practice, join me in imagining that there are golden threads of light that connect your heart to those you love. And from this open-hearted place, begin to visualize your heartstrings. And let's send them out. Let's send them out to each person sitting with us here. And if you'd like to open your eyes to see their faces on the screen, you may. And let's send them out to those who are brokenhearted across the world from where you are. I will send them out to those on the other side of the border in Gaza who are suffering. Feeling how easy it is to tuck them deep into my open heart. Send them out as threads of love, of life, and love. And so if you haven't already, I'll invite you now to gently open the eyes. Rest your gaze one last time on that thing that made you smile. Turn the corners of the lips up. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mark, to close us off.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was just beautiful. So appreciative. And friends, we seal the practice as we do each day, offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning, observing a yard site, or if you're accustomed to join in the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. And if you'd like to put the name or names of those you're honoring or holding in your heart today in the chat box now or later, you're welcome to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, please stay present for those who are and offer your compassionate support. Thanks to Jordan Pollock for sharing the words on the screen. And if you're joining me, please rise in body or in spirit as you are able. And you can unmute at this time.
Yitkadash,
Yikadash,
Rabbi,
Yama Divra Shivite, Yamit Halavate, Yayechon, Yamechon, Yisrael, Default,
Israel,
Ba'agala,
Israel,
Kari,
Kalav,
Vibru,
Bizman, Kavi, Vimur,
Shmei, Rabba, Mevarach, Lam, Lame, Hamaya, Abba, Aman, Te, Kaved, Dash, Mei,
Veda Kushabe, Kushabe, Nimko, Kasha,
Tata, Hama,
Jihan, Bima, Gimur, Ishama, Rabban, Ishmaya, Yehi, Malim, Kol Israel, Vimur,
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, thanks to our teacher today, Rabbi Sara Brandis of Awakened Body, joining us from Hanaton in Israel. Sarah, so grateful to you for making time and leading us and just having this opportunity for us to connect with you, and grateful for all of that. Friends, you're welcome to stay on for our conversation with Sarah about today's teaching, or to share reflections if you like in the chat. Just a reminder, if you're leaving now, you're welcome to join us tomorrow. Yiska Smith will be leading us in practice, joining us from Jerusalem. And on Friday, Janet Sadaka, Beth the Well, will lead us in practice, sit into Shabbat together. And just a reminder about next week when Rabbi Daniel Raphael Silverstein will be leading us in a 4-day series on the Shema as a meditative practice, Monday through Thursday next week. So we hope you'll join us for that. Thanks to Jordan Pollock for holding our space, as always, beautifully. And once again, if you have a question you'd like to put to Sara, please put it in the chat. And if you can, preface it by writing question in all caps to help me keep an eye out for your question. Well, that was just what the doctor ordered, Sara, I would say. Thank you so much. And I'm going to keep an eye out for questions, but I'll start us off with this one. I was really taken by what you said about, you sort of acknowledged that, people have all kinds of reactions, right, to the devastation. I think you used the phrase, if you scratch the surface, you get to the brokenheartedness about death. So I wanted to invite you to talk a little bit about that, because it just seemed to me like that is certainly worth the price of admission right there. That people might feel maybe now, a month later, and with all that has transpired, some of the original numbness and shock may have subsided, and so emotions are present, and but that under some of those emotions, you dig down, like you said, dig down under those emotions. There is this pain, and I just felt like one of the reasons this was a powerful practice is that it went right, you went right there, went right for the pain, and I appreciated that you created a safety for people to do that by having the escape valve of focusing on something that gives you joy. So thank you for that, and want to come back to that in a minute though, but can you say a little bit more about just noticing emotions and kind of peeling the layers of the onion of the emotions to get to what's under them?
Yeah.
If I heard you right. I heard you right.
Yes. Yes. I know. I'm glad that for you, at least, it was just what the doctor ordered. For me, it's sort of inescapable. Like, if I'm really not capable of practicing in any meaningful way, ignoring that my heart is completely broken right now. So it's sort of unavoidable. But so I think you asked, it was two different questions at the beginning and at the end. I'll answer the one you got to at the end, and then you can go loop back to the one you're asking at the beginning. But so the last thing you asked was about, you said about peeling away the layers of the onion with working with emotion. So I do think that this is a difference between sort of our regular day-to-day life and what we're living with right now. And I'm living in one reality here in Israel, and it's a different reality in other places in the world. But I honestly think that because of the sort of secondary, it's like the original earthquake. I'm from California, so we'll use an earthquake metaphor. The original earthquake was the explosion of violence on October 7th and everything that's followed. But then, like, the really big aftershock of anti-Semitism, that what we have right now in the Jewish people is just a sense of rawness that is sort of unavoidable. So your question on a normal day, I think normally we all are constantly titrating between what's going on inside of us and how much of that we can kind of metabolize at any given moment. And that's the challenge, and that's the beautiful invitation of practice, is to say, I commit to giving myself a daily routine that makes space for the fullness of me. That, if I go to work and I get paid to fulfill a certain function where I don't really have space for like all of me, that I commit to having practice where I make space for the fullness of me. And then, as you said, you peel back the layers little by little. I think the blessing and the deep challenge of right now is that so many of us find ourselves just like whoosh, someone just ripped 4 layers off the onion. I didn't give anyone permission, but here I am. And so the intent of the practice was to say, okay, like let's lean into that, and let's notice that in that we are really raw. There's a lot of of beauty in that, actually.
Right, right. Well, yeah, because it kind of strips away and goes down to that essence of what's always lurking there in some way. And
Mm-hmm.
like, it was interesting, like, well, what I was going to say was the fact that this happened on Simchat Torah, on Shmini Atzeret at the end of the holidays. And a lot of people here, not everyone, but a lot of people here in this IGS community focused on Alan Liu's book, This Is Real, and You Were Completely Unprepared, which is really about, working with awareness of mortality and death, right? And then this happens. And so it was already kind of like all prepped for the rawness of it, but that's where this is the fact this is real, right? And what happens in that moment. I guess what I was wondering about a little bit was like noticing when we have the emotions of anger, whatever it's directed at, right? Or fear, whatever the fear is also about, tracing that roots back down to that, it all comes down to the broken heart and to existential fears about non-existence, right? Which changes things. Like if we stay stuck in fear or stuck in anger, that's where many people stay, right? And that layer, we just get rotating around and around, and that the antidote is to keep going, keep going, keep going. Like what's really happening here? Like what is this really about? I think that's why this is so powerful. The other question I was going to ask you actually is that it's interesting thing about the heart. We talk a lot about the heart. And it does make a big difference for me to put my hand over the heart, and you invited us to imagine cupping our heart and holding it tenderly, and it's beautiful. And yet, it's a physical organ, but it represents something much more than the physical organ, right? It's not like brokenheartedness is not that. Oh, it's in my body, right? Because I've moved a little bit from describing my status from brokenhearted to soul shattered, really about that there's a soul injury that's going on here, which goes, a little bit more. So I wanted to, that's a part I want to talk about. Like we talk about, the heart is used a lot as a metaphor for the spirit, right? And so I just want to invite you to talk a little bit about that, that's another onion.
Yes, I'm really glad you're asking me this question. I need to start sidebar. The interface that I'm in right now, I can't see the chat at all, but it's popping up. I can see people asking direct questions to me. So Jordan, can you copy and paste it or something? Because I'm not seeing them at all right now. So I'm never going to see them.
All right, while you're answering, I'm going to scroll through there.
Thank you. Yeah. Even if we don't get to them, I just want to be able to follow up with people. I see people who I know and can respond to later asking questions, but I can't read them. Okay. So I'm so glad you're asking me this question because so it's very, very relevant to the work that I do at Awakened Body. And basically, I want to push back a little bit against what you said when you said the heart is a physical organ and really your soul shattered. So of course, the heart is a physical organ. The four chambers has a function of pumping blood through the body. Absolutely, it is that. But, one of the profound ways that I'm resisting saying synchronicity, overlap. I would say one of the deep modes of knowing that Kabbalah anticipates modern science has to do, Zohar makes the claim that there are three minds in the body. Here, a head, heart, and in this text, it's liver, but so head, heart, gut. So what we know about the basic way that hormones and neurotransmitters control the body today, we can explain from a scientific standpoint in ways that they never could have been how right on that is. And so I do believe that the heart, and folks here might be more familiar with language, Eastern language around the chakra of heart center. In my work, I work with Tiferet, as and if you can there's certain maps of the Kabbalistic tree of life where you can really see Tiferet as the hub of the wheel that all of the other sefirot are kind of revolving around that place. And so I do believe that the energetic heart has a reality to it. Just because modern science can't measure those realities yet doesn't mean that it's not real. And I think that anyone who's been brokenhearted or heavy-hearted can feel that. Like we feel that existentially. It's not like so many of us, I think if we drop in, or at least, in the days right after everything, there is an actual heaviness in the heart, it actually, you feel it here. So I believe that that's real. I also believe that the heartstrings I was speaking about were real. I just think that science has a little ways to go before we have the tools to measure these things. But I believe that we have the perceptive ability to sense them, even if our tools aren't there yet.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great answer. Thank you. All right, so here's a question. There were a couple of questions, but I'm going to focus on Lori's question. How do we separate the non-controlling, no expected outcome, sending out of love and open-heartedness? How do we separate that from the hope/expectation driven sending out of love with intention to love away the violence? That is where we send with hope to change things instead of sitting with things as they are. Pure non-controlling open-heartedness and heartstrings without attachment to, I guess, the outcome.
Yeah. I'll answer by way of a personal anecdote and a little bit of a plug for Daniel's series next week. So the truth is that for me personally, I was shattered when all this began because I was so deeply aligned with a personal practice of Ze Hayom Asa Adonai Nagila v'nismecha bo, which is to say radical surrender to what is and cultivating a practice of loving what is. And then everything happened and I shattered, and it was like, who would love this? Who would be quote unquote Zen about this? And it was really only thanks to a conversation with Daniel that I was able to begin to shift into some of that. So
can you say more about that?
Well, so the reason I reached out to Daniel is because he gives a teaching when he teaches in long meditation retreat environments. He gives a teaching in the name of Rabbi Jeff Roth, so Jeff teaches beautifully around a mantra of now it's like this, that we sit and practice and we just again and again, now it's like this. But I learned that teaching from Daniel. And so I was reaching out to him because it was like, that was what I was throwing a temper tantrum against when it all happened. And what I can't really make it pretty. Like when you say, can I say more about it? What I can say is that it took until the Shloshim to be able to get back to that posture of practice. I am back in that posture of practice. I do think that there's no choice but to be in that posture. I think that the deep truth of this practice is that God is Hamakom. God is only in the present, and the only way to really achieve Vivekut and to really come into presence with God is to do it fully surrendered. And I think that, so Lori's question about violence, love, like sending out love, unconditional love versus, well, I love you, but I'd really prefer that you stop, that you give back the hostages, for example, so I think that the deep work for me, I think that the biggest gateway to getting back to that posture of radical faith and radical surrender has to do with the deep dance with death that Rabbi Lou takes us through in This Is Real and You're Completely Unprepared. That our problem as people is that at the end of the day, we would prefer we were not mortal, but we are mortal. And that is the great conundrum. And, and it's in dancing with all that we eventually come through to hopefully to a sense of connecting with that which is eternal, right? That's our Jewish path.
Right. Well, this is incredibly rich. I wish we had more time, but we're at time. And Sara, I want to, first of all, just want to send you, on behalf of everyone here, or was here today, send you and your family and everyone there a lot of love and connection.
Thank you.
Hope you can,
Thank
hope
you.
you can
Thank
feel,
you.
hope you can feel the heartstrings coming your way and continuing to come your way. And may everyone be safe and well. And just thank you again for offering this beautiful teaching that was just right on the money for everyone today. And thanks, Jordan. And I'm going to put, I will share the chat with you, by the way, Sarah, which is full of a lot of
Thank you. Yes.
appreciation.
Yes.
And oops, also wanted to put, here, I'm going to put your website back in there too, unless Jordan beats me to it. I got it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks all so much. All right. We hope to see you tomorrow to practice with Yiska Smith. Many blessings, everyone. Thanks so much, Sarah.